Good morning. Okay, alright. Today I'll be presenting to you my civic action plan. I'm Javin Castro Rivera.
And I'm Shalo Baniaga.
Prisoners adjusting to normal life is our civic action plan.
So you guys are probably wondering why we're doing this and why you're here. This is our table of contents, and this is going to be what we're going to be explaining today and covering. So why are we doing this project? For our class, Participation in Democracy, we learn how to advocate and raise awareness for an issue through our civic action plan projects. Our teachers, Mr. Ferris and Ms. Kanehiro, partner with the Japanese Culture Center, or the JCCH, and to give us an opportunity to visit the Honi Uli Uli internment campsite. As a part of going on the field trip, our group was selected to carry out our civic action plan, which is why we are here today. We are doing this project because we are American citizens in a democracy. We are carrying out our duties and responsibilities of an American citizen by trying to raise awareness to what we think is an important issue in our society.
Okay, why is this topic important to us? When prisoners come out of jail, they are used to their prison life and not to a normal one. Once out, though, most try to change and fit into normal society. Often, though, many relapse because of the hardships and challenges they face because of the stigma of being an ex-con. An ex-convict is someone who served time in prison. Some of the hardships and challenges that ex-cons face are viewed as untrustworthy. Few businesses want to hire a former criminal even if they have changed and want to create a better life for themselves. Often stuck in low jobs, which leads them to the temptation of reverting back to their former street life. Okay, my experience with this is my Uncle Kaika. He's an ex-convict, and he tried to make a change in his life by working at Pearl Harbor, and he was working there for 1 year, and he was off drugs, everything. And then they did a random background check on him, and they fired him because of his criminal background. And after being fired, he reverted back to his criminal lifestyle of robbing people and stealing stuff, and that got him sent back to jail. My second experience is with my stepdad. He was in and out of jail for 30 years, and when he met my mom, he stayed out of jail for 5 years straight, but was still involved with some criminal activity, which got him sent to jail for 2 years, and is currently out of jail and working with my uncle as a painter, trying to make an honest living.
So our civic action plan, or CAP, these are the things that we wanted to do for our civic action plan. We wanted to participate in programs to support prisoners and to help them transition into an honest life. We also wanted to present our presentation to actual prisoners and/or government officials. We also wanted to create and pass out flyers and interview prisoners in order to share their stories about adjusting to normal life. For our civic action plan steps, in order to carry out our plan and meet the JCCH standards, we had to adjust our plan. So what we did was we made contact with the Peacemakers organization to set up a presentation. We also researched about our topic. We made copies of the Peacemakers brochure, and we prepared our presentation to you today.
Okay, there are some pictures of us working on our project.
So for our civic action plan letter, so one of our steps for the civic action plan project was to write a letter to a government official. So we wrote it to our governor, Neil Abercrombie, and we wanted to ask for his support to create programs to help prisoners who have been in jail for many years to adjust to a normal life when they come out. So for the history of Japanese internment camps, Japanese in Hawaii and on the West Coast were held in internment camps. And on the West Coast, all people with Japanese ancestry were held in internment camps. And in Hawaii, all Japanese community leaders like priests, school teachers, and business leaders, etc. were interned. And the outside world viewed them as untrustworthy people and had a negative effect on them.
The connection to Japanese internment camps. Japanese internees were ashamed of being forced into internment camps. They didn't feel they did anything wrong. Internees felt a sense of haji from being in the internment camps. Prisoners feel a sense of shame from having spent time in prison. Connection to Japanese internment camps. They both felt a stigma from being interned and in prison. Internees and prisoners would try to make changes in their lives and better themselves. They wanted to prove to everyone that they are not as bad as they seem. Stigma, a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person.
So in this picture, this is the waterway and walkway at Honolulu internment campsite. This is the foundation of Honolulu internment camp mess hall. This is where all the internees ate. And if you look closely, this is a barbed wire left behind at the internment campsite at Honolulu. So the differences between prisoners and internees. Internees were forced to go into internment camps because of their ethnicity and no other reason. Prisoners, they chose to commit crimes which sent them back into prison and by judge. So on the picture on the left, this is the internees lining up. And on the right, this is prisoners today in jail.
Okay, so I brought in an organization called the Peacemakers. Here's a group of people who has been through experiences relating to our topic. They are going to explain to you guys about the stories and go deeper into our topic. So, may I bring up the Peacemakers?
I'm really honored to be here, especially looking at, all the work that they've done. I say, wow, it's amazing. Because for us, we actually look at things like, wow, do people really care? And to see like teenagers, put this together and say, hey, they have some concerns. And that's basically what the Peacemaker is all about. We've been going into schools, since I started it in 2004 to speak to students about some of the challenges that a lot of guys, face coming out of prison. And that's how I started an organization called the First Lap. LAP stands for Life After Prison. In 2002, I've been doing this work, working with men, helping them come out, basically to deal with a lot of the struggles, because you guys are going to hear my story later, of the struggles I went through, but how I overcame it and stuff like that. So, in a few minutes, I'm going to have two of our guys share, basically their experience. Mackie is my assistant, at the program. And Mackie basically, works with these men, trying to help them to overcome the challenges that they face. And I'm going to have Brad, share his experience, coming out. And Brandon is one of our newest members here, so he just kind of observing and seeing, what we do, because he just got released little over 2 weeks ago, from prison, so in due time, he's going to share as we go more and speak at different places, because we've been doing this, for a long time, and we get called to all different schools, different, community events, so just to give you guys an idea of what, a lot of these men go through, and can relate with the internees, what they went through. And some of you guys probably have family members or, siblings, that actually go through these things, and basically when you look at it, it's like when people putting you down, basically, like how I seen the cyberbullying thing, like how people, degrade you, make fun of you and so forth like that, but it's a struggle to overcome those things, but we're going to share like how we overcame those challenges, and we hope you guys learn, something from this. So I'm going to have brother Brad, share a little bit, and we can just grab seats and sit down.
Morning, everybody. My name is Brad. I just got out, and I'm making 1 year next month. I've been out. I was incarcerated for 9 months at OCCC, this time for theft. Actually, just shoplifting. I was facing 15 years this time for that. I did 6 years in Halawa and the mainland before for the same charge. So, yeah, getting out of prison is a real struggle, because it's really hard. Like, people in society, they judge you when you get out of jail. Like, especially with the theft charge I have, it's hard to get a job because nobody hire somebody who won't steal, so they automatically is thinking. So I kind of went struggle this time, and it was so hard getting one job. And when I finally found one job, I was working at California Pizza Kitchen, and because they knew of my history and stuff, they kind of went look down upon me and talk down towards me, and that job never ended up happening.
And I can relate a little bit to that story because my mom, when she was growing up in Kaimuki, she witnessed the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And her last name was Sakuma, which is Japanese. Because of the bombing of Japan, her dad changed their last name to Kanapu. And I'm pretty sure you guys can figure out why. Because with that Japanese name, they would have been put into internment camps, but they wanted to avoid that. They wanted to avoid going into the internment camps. Also, they couldn't get jobs because of the last name. And that's the kind of same realities that these men from prison, they share the same realities as these people that were in internment camps. Society looks at them and judges them right away.
You can see a lot of these challenges that these men and women face when they come out of prison. They get hard time finding jobs, because of their criminal history. So as a kid, I attended Moanalua, and if you guys familiar with Moanalua, not too many Polynesians. And back then, we were the only Samoan family in Moanalua. Yeah, this was in the 70s, so you guys weren't even born. So I attended a school, we were the only Samoan family, so, you guys heard that saying, hurt people hurt people? No? Okay, I'm going to explain that. Hurt people hurt people. Basically, when what you're taking inside, you tend to give it out. So because I was a hurting child, I started to hurt other people. And unfortunately, because I was surrounded by little people, the Asian, Japanese, Chinese. No, I'm sorry, but that's the true story. Yeah, and I look at it. I used to take their lunch money. Yeah, I used to make them do my homework. I was forcing them to do them because they were afraid of me. They always did these stuff. So I grew up in school doing that all the time. Never even pay attention to school. Yeah, because I was hurting inside because I hated my dad for how he treated me. Yeah, so I was hurting other people because I was feeling hurt myself. I never know how to deal with these issues. Yeah. Then when I got into middle school at Moanalua, I had a teacher that took me in a room, abused me, would beat me up and tell me, you stupid Samoan. You stupid Samoan, always disrupting my class. Yeah. So there I was, going in and out of jail. In 1987, I picked up a charge of attempted murder. Yeah. I beat up one man. Just hit him one time, knocked out on the ground. On the road, I'm looking at him laughing, beating up a man. I thought I was tough. Walking back, bragging to the boys, Till this day, he's brain dead. Yeah, so I'm awaiting this attempted murder charge in prison in 1987. Supervised release to my dad. Yeah. Released back home, the place I was still hooked to ice, alcohol, and so forth like that. But in 1988, I got into another fight. Yeah. This time I killed a man. Yeah. A former Crip member. I got into a fight because this man came to my house and threatened my family. Threatened my mom and dad. Hit my mom in front of me, so I lost it. Got into a fight with that man. He refused to go to the hospital. He later on died that night. So there I was in prison again, facing a murder charge, facing life in prison. Yeah. So at a young age, 19 years old, facing life in prison, didn't really care. All I did was just crying in there. But 3 months later after that incident, I received a call. The ACOs, they said, lockdown, lockdown. So everybody had to go to their room. Mr. Taufete, come to the control station. So I walked down to the control station. Here I am, 19 years old, already stressed and worried about, doing life in prison. They called me down and they told me, Mr. Taufete, we have some bad news. Now here I am thinking, bad news, I'm facing life, I just killed a man. What more could be bad? Then they told me, today we found out your brother was killed. So there I was crying again. My brother was killed because of my past history, because of my mistake. So there was a young man dealing with all this pressure. I wanted to die. I didn't care already. I wanted to die. Yeah, but fortunately, I had people writing to me, encouraging me, Christian people. I never really believed in God. I never believed all these things because I grew up in the church. So I never really understood that. Yeah, so I found out that my brother was killed. So he was highly publicized on the news and everything like that. And family went before them and asked for forgiveness. They accepted the forgiveness, but they came back, and they took my brother's life. So it was a big thing in the Samoan community. So anyway, I went to court. They convicted me of manslaughter, which is the lesser charge, which is 10 years, behind bars. And so out of that 10 years, I did 4.5 years, got out on parole, but, I still haven't done with the issue, still young, under 25 years old, still addicted to alcohol, to ice, and wanting to be the man. So I went back to the same thing. Yeah, for a couple years. I got out in 1993. For 3 years, I was just running them hard, doing all the same things like you see a lot of these men when they come out, like how you heard from Brad, because who gonna hire one ex-con like me? I'll be honest, with my violent history and stuff. So nobody wanted to hire me. Yes, I was going with all that pressure, so I went back to drinking, doing drugs, because I never know how to deal with this stuff. Threatened by my PO, if you don't get one job, I'm going to send you back to jail. So all this stuff dealing with. Yeah, and there was 1996, there was a group of men that came to me. Yeah, they were part of a church. You guys may have heard of Word of Life Christian Center. Yeah, so the man at that time, the pastor Joe on the side, yeah, he grew up in KPT housing, but he had a ministry called Men of War that used to come and go to different schools, and they used to come to me every night at the bar. Because they heard of me and so forth, because my cousin was part of this, they would come every night and encourage me, to change my life, that people care, and that's all it took. They invited me to their church that one night, and ever since then, it changed my life. I really finally felt that people really cared and loved me for me. So it was then that I began that journey, and this is basically what you see now. Yeah, so I can share all the good things been going on. The relationship with my dad, totally changed. I'm his assistant minister at his church now, So a lot of things, I had to share, about the changes and so forth like that. So yes, I should share that September I'll be married 21 years. Yeah. I married a beautiful Hawaiian Portuguese girl, which is another case because it was an embarrassment. Grew up the Samoans, my parents told me I had to marry one Samoan. Yeah. So I married outside our culture, so you can imagine what we went through, but I don't worry about that kind. This is my family for me and my kids. And we have 5 beautiful children. 3 of them graduated from private schools. Our other one's going to grad this year, from Sacred Hearts. We own our own business, doing pretty good, aside from running this program and so forth like that. So that's basically just some things that, I can share with you guys. But life for me and my family, is totally good. We live right up the street, Village Park below Kunia, so we bought a house, several years ago. So just moving forward to provide a better place, for our kids and so forth like that. So that's just some of the stuff. But thank you guys for having us, be here.